I'm going to continue on the fourth topic, citing and permitting considerations. So the first question, the topic area 2 specifically, can the proposer submit 2 sites instead of 1 to minimize risk of what if one site does not get approved?
We did not envision that. We do not envision that with the current structure of the solicitation. We currently envision that an application is made up of a technology and a site. There's no restriction on submitting multiple applications, so one could see how you could submit the same technology in 2 different sites using 2 different applications, but we don't currently envision 2 sites being proposed under the same application.
And Chris, maybe this is an area that we can talk a little bit about developing the criteria, because it may be that might be of assistance, particularly since these are concepts and sometimes the available information associated with conflicting use is not readily available. So we may have to do some more to see if that's possible, because that might help ultimately getting the best proposal.
Thank you, Brad. That's great conversation we can engage. Next question is DOE open to allowing the federal permitting agencies to have a NEPA lead agency? Maybe Holden or DOI or someone would be great.
Yeah, Kristen.
Kristen, if you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
I'm Kristen Kerwin.
There we go.
Kristen Kerwin, NEPA Compliance Officer at the Golden Field Office. Can you repeat that question?
The question is DOE open to allowing the federal permitting agencies to have a NEPA lead?
Under NEPA, there will be one lead agency assigned, and it honestly depends on the configuration of the application, which federal agencies are involved in, which makes the most sense to be a lead agency, but there will just be one.
And in the case if it was working with a commercial lease that we would have to issue, it would be, Boeing would be the retail agency working with all its partners.
Great. The next question is there an ideal project size in mind, and how does that differ with a research lease? Is a 1.5 megawatt turbine too small for the current call?
Yeah, so that's 2 questions. So I'll answer the second one first. We'd envision multi-megawatt, meaning 2 or larger. So 1.5 would be too small. And what was the first part of that?
Is there an ideal project size in mind, and how is that affected with a research lease?
So we envision at least 1 turbine in these sites, and there's certainly a possibility that there would be multiple turbines in one project. One of the things one of the pieces of language that we included in the FOA was the desire for DOE to understand turbine-to-turbine interaction, and towards that end, we would collect data that would better help us understand that interaction, and thereby, in order to have turbine-to-turbine interaction, obviously you need multiple turbines, and there's a debate on what the right number there to have is, but it looks like, so that's the short answer. We see that there could be projects that only have 1 turbine, and we hope that there's projects that have more than 1 turbine.
And with regard to scope and scale, there is no limit in that research lease. It's really focused on what kind of functions are you proposing on that research lease.
Great. So another NEPA, I believe, recommended question here, presented question rather. Can there be a time frame put for the permitting in NEPA in the final FOA? And is there a possibility to have a one-stop shop, either a DOE or DOI, so applicants don't have to have this discussion with 10 different agencies?
I'll take the last part first. We will have, as was explained in the previous answer, a federal lease. And to that extent, we will, if it is a commercial lease or a research lease that comes under our jurisdiction, we will take that lead and we'll make it as efficient as possible. There will have to be dialogue, and we encourage dialogue with other federal agencies, because sometimes, particularly when there are critical habitat or particular species involved, sometimes having that augmented dialogue with the federal entity responsible for those trust resources can actually help the obligations that we would have as a lead federal agency moving forward with those kinds of consultations. But we will, if it's a commercial lease or research lease, something that we have jurisdiction over on the outer continental shelf, we will make that hopefully as painlessly, not painfully, but painlessly as possible for your coordination efforts and work with the other federal agencies.
And I'll answer the first part of that question. We don't envision having specific timelines associated with these steps in the approval process in the FOA. And the reason, especially for topic area 2, the reason it really only applies to topic area 2. The reason why is because we envision funding multiple projects and getting alignment between those different projects as they go through those different approval processes is not conceivable. It's not realistic. So we see the goal. We put an overarching timeline, commissioning in the 2015 to 2017 timeframe. So our goal is to have all projects commissioned by the end of 2017, and the way by which we get there will vary between the selected projects.
Great. The next question is maybe a combination of A and D. It's an important question here. What level of third-party certification would be required for proposed turbines, foundations, maybe in the entire project? They want me to answer. I can't. So it's a couple of things. I would say it's two-part. One of them is I don't want to underemphasize the importance of the fact that we are seeking innovative design. And in some cases, by definition, innovative may not be a turbine that is available today or element of that turbine that is available today. But what we are required, to the best of our ability, is to make sure that the standards and the required design, structural capabilities are of such a nature that, of course, the machine can survive and is willing to perform in that particular site. We've been talking about geographic diversity, of course. When we're talking about the Great Lakes, we're talking about icing conditions, whatever it may be. When we're talking about Gulf, we are talking about hurricanes. We're talking about these things. So that there will be a requirement that the designer really looks at those particular site conditions and can prove to the team, through the proposal, their ability that their design will survive those kinds of environments. So that's imperative for this. So I'll leave it as a general question. Of course, many of you who may be partnering and working with OEMs and trying to balance out both viability and the reliability, but also the innovative part, we'll have a variety of different discussions that you will be having with your team. But it's imperative to recognize that, of course, each site has its own challenges, and we clearly seek to have a response from proposalees as to how they will survive those particular conditions.
May I just add a little bit, Jose? One of the, and this is actually a great transition point into the final topic. I'm not sure if we're there yet, but that's one of the main reasons why we want to have this robust data acquisition process, especially for topic area 2. And what does, when we say data acquisition, it means much more than just your typical performance and engineering data. We want to understand on the cost cascade that we have up there. That's the best numbers that we have available to us now, and we collected that data from many different sources, but we want to validate those numbers. And so to the extent that we can collect operations and maintenance and other cost data for these projects and maintain, as we discussed briefly, and happy to discuss in more detail later, maintain the integrity of that data to the sources. But the purpose there is to better understand where those levers actually are on that cost reduction cascade and how we can best apply our funding and our expertise and our efforts towards progression down that cost cascade. So
I'm going to circle back to a point that Jose made. You know, obviously at the FOA stage there'll be that certification. But if you come in under a commercial lease, we would have that obligation for that certification. Fortunately, we have this partnership with you that can help that when you come in with your facility design report. that we'll be able to meet those obligations that we have in our regulatory certifications for. So you get it twice.
Great, thank you. Two more questions in this topic, and then we'll move to the final topic. Question here is, how, in topic area 2, how final is, in quotes, final design for the first period? There are many things that affect that. Site information collected over time and requirements from the permitting process may adjust design or installations, and perhaps they can be significant. How will these processes interact with one another?
It's a great question. We've given a lot of thought to that. What exactly is a final design? There will be language in the final FOA that is very specific on what delineates a final design. But for discussion here, I think it suffices to say that a final or 100% front-end feed design, front-end engineering design, 100% feed
A lot of
design.
designs there, right?
That's what we're going to be looking for at the end of phase, the first budget period for topic area 2.
There's some nuances related to NEPA, term final design nuances. Or, let me put you on the spot.
Krista, I think it's a call.
In terms of the DOE's NEPA regulations, we're required to look at the entire project. Final design gets lumped in with construction and operation. So, looking at 2 different NEPA reviews, probably one for budget period 1 that would be anything up to, but not including final design, and then another NEPA review for final design, construction, and operation.
I would also add to that, and we discussed this, but I would say designs that we have a high level of confidence at a third party engineering house, no conflict of interest, to look at it and give us a high degree of confidence of the cost associated with construction and installation. Obviously, there's a moving scale a little bit here, but we really need to have that high confidence of what it's ultimately going to cost to rebuild and put it cost and to operate for that matter. Again, the validation that Chris showed on the waterfall chart is so critical. If we can't validate that, then we don't decrease the discount factor across the board associated with the project.
Great. One question here. To minimize risk and increase chance for demonstration success, siting in sheltered, very shallow waters is favored. How will this risk reduction be considered?
That is an obvious point. I think we can acknowledge that that's the case. But as is the case with these sorts of complex projects, there's many things that we're trying to balance. And one of the things that we're trying to balance is this advanced technology pushing the envelope closer towards where we think a steady state offshore wind industry will be from a technology perspective. And when we try and strike that balance, we lean more towards the technology and innovation side of that balance, recognizing that we are introducing perhaps an additional level of risk by doing so. But that's a conscious decision that we make.
Great. Last question is, how could a 25 or 50 megawatt project fit within this goal? I would just say a couple things to that. Of course, you all are aware of the timescales that we're dealing with. If you have a project that you believe will meet those timescales, and if you have a project that you believe has the ability to meet the requirements and the metrics being required for this particular call, we encourage you to apply. And there's a variety of different ways that you can consider this. You can set aside 2 machines or whatever you may want to make sure that they meet the requirements presented under this funding opportunity announcement, or whatever other creative way that you could think about it. But again, it is imperative to recognize that there is key metrics that these proposals will be evaluated, and we hope that they're clearly outlined within the opportunity announcement.
I would even add one additional thing, extend that question a little bit more and say, how does a 500 megawatt project or a 1,000 megawatt project fit into this solicitation, and does it? Yes, it does. Does the whole project? Probably not. But there's, especially now if you look at the global development, you're starting to see retrofitting of existing commercial installations with advanced technology in order to test that technology in a commercial environment. And that's something that's very interesting. So just extend that question a little bit further. Even large commercial projects, there's a piece of that project that could potentially apply to this solicitation, given its ability, as Jose mentioned, to meet certain criteria and certain metrics.
Great. We're going to move to the final topic. There are only a few questions, so if you have additional ones, please present them, or this will be a little bit shorter of a session. The first one is, what kind of connection does the DOE see between the demo project and the ongoing 43 funded technology development and market barrier activities?
It's a great question, and that's one of the things that we've struggled with in executing the strategy, was how to be completely frank, we've communicated on many occasions, as you're all aware, we were ready to execute all of these facets, these three focus areas simultaneously. And therefore the linkages, the hard linkages between results from some of the projects which are going to be completed in phase, in those other two or those other three solicitations, the hard linkage is not there. We're not going to be able to draw a direct line between this particular solution and this particular result in the demonstration project. However, that being said, it is our intention to maintain those lines of communication where they make sense. And how will we do that? For those of you who aren't aware, as we rolled out the awards last year, we had an event at the AWEA conference up in Baltimore where we got all the awardees together and has tried to establish that group kind of cohesive nature, and we'll continue to support that activity as it goes forward. And this would be as a facet of our larger initiative. This would be included in that. So and frankly, the communication is not just limited to between awardees. As we get results, as we get interim results, the intention is to propagate those results to the industry in order to increase the knowledge base of the industry. So to the extent that we can facilitate those relationships and facilitate that perhaps softer exchange of results and softer exchange of ideas, then we will do that. One final quick point, there is that one topic area within the tech development FOA where we're looking at innovative systems. And the purpose of those systems is to look at the whole, draw that control volume around a piece of the offshore wind system, and then hit that hard for cost of energy from a system level perspective. And there you can see how there may be direct synergies between those particular projects and a project like this potentially.
Yeah, I would just add to that a couple things to what Chris just said. Of course, it's alluded to in topic area 2 and in topic area 1, the needs data. In topic area 2, we also augment that with the, I would say, the want by the Department of Energy to study turbine-to-turbine interaction. If you reflect on the 43 awards that were made, several of them were made around computer models, validating structural aerodynamics, hydrodynamic models, and things of that nature. It is our thought that there could be a synergy, a very well synergy between the data that's being gathered by these assets and those ongoing activities as well. Those, of course, will be done in such a way, working through our Golden Field office and the recipient of the award to make sure that proper IP is being protected and things of that nature. So that's one of the key goals and metrics for gathering the data for these particular machines.
Two more real quick points on this topic. We have annual or semi-annual peer reviews in the Wind and Water Power program, and that's an opportunity for us to showcase some of the funded activities within our program and get public response and thoughts on those activities. It's also an excellent way for the PIs and the awardees to promulgate results and get those results out into the industry. So that's another facet. Second point to make is that these results and these activities that we're funding in the other FOAs and that we will be funding in this FOA both have tremendous amount of impact on future funding activities, and this is future funding opportunity announcements. And it's no stretch to say that this is something that looking at our national strategy, this is something that we were in for the long haul, and we're looking forward to leveraging some of those results and helping us make better investments in the future.
Great. Question here is, how are the results from the 43 projects that are already funded, how is that information made available? I'm just going to take a stab and let others comment here. Of course, in a variety of ways is the complicated answer. Of course, depending on who's doing them, there's requirements on reporting and different types of dissemination strategies that are required of those activities, which are presented in conferences or things of that nature. The other thing is what Chris just mentioned, which is this peer review process, where all of our projects go into a detailed showing of their activities and their results and so forth. Matter of fact, the Win-Win Program 1 is happening this summer, where a variety of these projects, including other types of projects, are going to be reviewed in quite a bit of depth. So that's going to happen. Anything else to add on that? Okay, is there any other questions regarding data before we move? Yes, I'm sorry. Steve just asked the dates of the review. It will be the third week in June. And the specific dates are being finalized and they will be posted on our website. So they are the third week of June in Washington, D.C. Okay, any other specific questions around data? Okay, so with that, we're going to move into what we're calling the open Q&A. I asked a couple of things. A, be respectful for the kind of questions we asked, but also, introduce yourself, who you're affiliated with, and we will handle those questions accordingly. As a reminder, I've said it several times, if you have a question which you don't want to have presented, either on paper or in the open, the website will be open through the 14th. So with that, I'd like to maybe open the floor for any questions that you may have. There's a question in the back of the room. Right behind you.
I'm Dr. Robert Parrish from Aerogen Power. We're a California-based wind turbine manufacturer. We're trying to change the figure of merit in the industry and go from 70 tons per megawatt to 30 tons per megawatt, because we think lowering costs or lowering the weight of machines will dramatically lower the cost of wind energy. And we've recruited a large developer to fund projects in Minnesota at half megawatt scale. And we're planning to go out to recruit OEMs in the later part of the summer. So the question is, if we don't have an OEM partner for the topic 2 proposal, can we identify the OEM partner in the second budget phase, or do we have to have that OEM partner set up on trip for this application in May?
So we're going to avoid two points to be made here on the open Q&A. I appreciate your question. First is we're going to limit our response to 1 minute, and we're going to limit your question to 1 minute as well. Just you didn't violate, so don't worry about that.
42 seconds.
But I just wanted to get that tidbit out there. But the second one is something that we really want to avoid is talking about what should or should not be done in an application process. That's the reason why we publish the funding opportunity announcement. That this is very unique that we actually published a draft version ahead of time. So now, a month before it's final, everyone has an opportunity to see what's in there. And I think we're very explicit with the areas that we want to be very explicit about in the language in the POA, and we're open in other areas. So we will not get into discussions about what should or should not be done in an application, but we'll actually refer you to the funding opportunity announcement language.
Yeah, so basically what we're saying is we don't want to be in a position to coach proposals, look at the evaluation criteria, and I think that will answer the question. whether you put something like that in there.
Thank you, Chris and Steve, for that. All right. Anybody else? We have a question right here in the front.
Hi, I'm Mike Gallagher. I'm from Fair Materials Science. One of the things I wanted to just make sure I understood a little bit better was this idea of a one site, one design comment that was made. It strikes me as that could be somewhat constraining. It's kind of like throwing a lot of money into one type of solution. Have you thought of the possibility of a one site but some kind of a flexible design test bed for offshore engineering development? And would that be within scope of the proposal?
We did two answers to that question. First of all, we've taken note about the value of multiple sites for one technology. I think that's something that we will take into consideration absolutely as we move towards the final version of this solicitation. So thank you very much for that. With regards to one site as a test facility, so to speak, maybe like a plug and play test facility, we did go through that thought process and we envisioned, we again moved away from that towards the one site, one technology proposal idea that I summarized before, but I think that's another, it may warrant another look. Great point.
Great. Is there a question in the back of the room?
Yes, this is Dan Cohen, Fisherman's Energy. Just a couple questions. One question. You had a slide about the cost of the projects and said that it was between $4 million and $7 million capital cost. And I was curious whether or not you had done any further breakdown of that, or that chart showing whether or not some of those in Europe had cable or substations included or not included, whether the capital cost is just for part of construction, or did it include such things as soft reserves for financing, for construction contingency, for maintenance reserves. So I was trying to understand if you're comparing apples and apples, or if you have a further analysis of that as apples and oranges.
So the purpose, thanks for the question. The purpose of those numbers was not to say that is the end all be all from a cost per megawatt, dollars per megawatt metric. The purpose there was to have in the most, I guess, in the safest way possible to have a discussion about the funding that's associated with this project. So it's something that we showed earlier in the presentation, and something we kind of all wrap our heads around. Have we taken a much deeper look at costs so that we've analyzed all those different components? Yes. Are we going to dig deeper? Yes. Would your input, your being the collective, your input in helping us understand those subtleties better, would that be valuable? Absolutely. So I really don't want to dig into those numbers anymore, other than to just say they're a raw average, just for discussion's sake, and we look forward to the opportunity to get into a higher fidelity discussion about cost.
And I would just add a couple things. Programmatically, if some of you may be familiar, as a program, we evaluate all the different elements that you alluded to earlier in a way so we can quantify where both our investments can be and what are the driving forces that really drive the overall LCOE for offshore systems. And of course, as Chris mentioned, it's an average on purpose, but secondly, I think that if we were really to try to identify with high fidelity each number for each particular project, that's very hard data to get to. So I think that that's also a reasoning why you saw it that way. Next question. I think we got one here.
Hi, my name is Peter Goldman, and I'm supporting Santee Cooper. We had a lot of discussion about NEPA responsibilities, and it's obvious if it's in the OCS that Bowen's going to take the lead. If it's in state waters, is the Corps going to take the lead, or is DOE going to take the lead?
It would probably be the Corps of Engineers. They would have siting responsibilities and state things.
Question. Peter, which one? We'll start right here, and then we'll follow you again. Right here.
Hi, John Duncan with ABS Consulting. Our parent company is the American Bureau of Shipping. And Steve, this question might be directed towards you. We have a long history of doing third-party inspections for the shipping industry primarily. You mentioned that you saw some role around third-party verification. Have you thought about the role of the government in that versus would you expect the commercial industry to really pick up the responsibility for that?
Yeah, I can see both. For another program that we have under the renewables, we are building commercial scale biorefineries. So we use third-party engineering houses that do construction engineering that have no conflict of interest to verify the bill of material costs, capital costs, and operating costs. And we see a potential role there as well as the government. On another program where we had a very, very competitive solicitation amongst auto manufacturers, we used the DOE National Lab. We actually formed what we call the Safe House. They kept all the data, and basically you couldn't get in there unless you had a password. And that way we didn't compromise any data. And this was conducted over 5 years, up to 10 partners. So we envision using methods like that to really get into the costs. So again, to inform the R&D, and then if we have those external folks involved, whether they're a laboratory or a third-party engineering house or organization like you have, you got to make sure the conflict of interest is there, data protection is there, and I think we're still working that out. So appreciate that comment. We'll factor that into the final follow-up.
I think there was a question on the third row. There we go. We'll go next.
Thank you. Sally McNeilin with Fugro. There's a recent report from the Crown Estates where the most significant factor in reducing costs was the proper consideration of site characterizations before important decisions were made. I got a feeling that you're pushing for site designs and everything else where this is a frontier area. We really don't have subsurface information, we don't have met-ocean data, and we don't have atmospheric data, and you're asking a proposer to propose a design and consideration. How are you going to allow for that? There was an earlier question, which was not mine, about proposing a couple sites so that if these factors were impacting it, they could be moved.
Yeah, I think we've already stated that there's a tremendous amount of value in potentially choosing multiple sites for one project. So I think again we've taken note of that. With your first comments, there's no argument there either. I mean, there's a lot of data that needs to be gathered and a lot of work that needs to be done, especially to get this to commercial scale. What we're proposing here is maybe a little bit different in that we're trying to do several things. We spent a lot of time talking about the technology, but Maureen has made a couple comments I think that are right on. This is an opportunity not only to gather data about technology, performance, and engineering data, not even data about the business aspects of offshore wind, operations and maintenance data, cost data, but also an excellent opportunity to get some systems installed on a manageable scale and instrument those systems for the collection of other data of all of the site assessment work that needs to be done. So now I don't want to speak out of turn from other federal colleagues, but there's a foundation upon which those necessary amounts of data and how much data needs to be collected. You understand the answer to that question much better when you've got facilities out there that are instrumented, and you can know how many certain species of birds are passing through there and all of that activity. And that's something that I think that's another benefit that this effort can really bring to the growth of the industry is rounding out that knowledge base much better. So yes, are we bringing additional risk into these projects by putting the projects in with a lower level of data that's collected? Potentially, but the benefit that we see is tremendous in that we will facilitate the growth of a commercial industry with a much better foundation of what data actually needs to be collected. Is that
You know, Sally, we've been working in the ocean a long time. I think that's probably one of the many, but probably the key defining difference between onshore and testing technology and offshore. It's, Chris, you're absolutely right. And I agreed with you earlier in the session. We're building this opportunity to really collect some really good data we can apply to our knowledge set. But there's that preliminary information that we need to be aware of what's where you're going to place that particular turbine, whether it's a geohazard or pre-contact site from an archaeological significance point of view. So that's going to be our challenge. And I think that Chris said, hey, okay, let's re-look at these multiple sites. Because you're right, do we really have that mid-ocean data and site characterization on the east and west coast? No, we're just starting. It's a very good point. And I think that we're going to be able to work with DOE to make sure we address that so we don't knock off a significant opportunity to do the data collection on the outer continental.
Great, thank you. Back of the room.
My name is Mark Sinclair. I work with the Clean Energy States Alliance, and we basically cooperate very closely with the Clean State Clean Energy Fund. And I think it's great that the federal government, with your limited budget, is able to put significant dollars into offshore wind demonstration projects. I would ask you to think about or get your reaction on trying to increase the amount of public funding that is going into offshore wind. The states still have significant dollars through their system benefit charges. And they have shown interest in the past in providing cost share, contributing towards projects like this. I'm wondering whether, and we want states to continue to put money into these sorts of projects because it leverages federal dollars and it results in a lot more excitement at the state level about these projects being in their waters or close to their waters. So my real point here is that consider providing some incentive or preference for those project applicants who are able to also get commitments for state cost share. I think that would be a way of raising more money and allowing more activities to go forward. Thanks for thinking about that. We, by the way, we're doing this same sort of a cost share idea with the Office of Electricity and states around energy storage, and it's going very well. So it is being shown that this kind of state-federal partnership can actually leverage much more results from our limited public dollars. Thanks.
Yeah, I guess we'll definitely take that comment into consideration. It's a very good comment. I would just reiterate that the cost share that we're looking for is not federal cost share. So it could be state money, private money, or a combination thereof.
And as captured from topic area 1 or the second period of topic area 2, it's at least 50% pressure. Okay. Next question. Getting a little tired of no. Well, do we have one? There we go.
Hi, I'm Bruce Williams from the University of Delaware. Just a little point of clarification. None of this is going to change any Section 307 interstate or federal consistency requirements, right?
It gets back to, I think, a point that Chris made in his presentation. We won't violate any laws. And so with regard to federal consistency, environmental compliance, providing access out onto the OCS or even state lands under the Corps of Engineers process or a state process, you know, it won't change anything. I think what is just an opportunity for shared funding, an opportunity to focus an initiative to gather data to help inform and drive down the cost of electricity generated from renewable energy. So we're not going to violate any laws. We have to follow all applicable federal and state laws.
Great. So if there are no further questions, I know some of us will be around to maybe answer a question or two, but on behalf of the Department of Energy, the Department of Interior, and many agencies that are here, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to come and spend with us this morning. We look forward to working with you in the future, and thank you again and safe travels.
Good job.